Orly, welcome to the Digi Dialogue series. I'm super stoked to hear your expertise and your insights about branding and how branding is really important in developing relationships with our customers. So I just want to start with a little, who is Orly, a little bit about your business, because we're going to really dig a little bit more deeply into that with other questions. But, whatever personal information, like where you live and, what your favorite color is, whatever you want to share would be great.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, Dennise. It's a pleasure to be here. And so I usually, this is something a lot of people don't know about me, is that I actually grew up on 3 continents and lived in 5 countries by the time I was 11 years old, which means I'm multicultural and also trilingual. And I always found that what I've realized is that's great training for someone who in her business helps founders figure out who they are and clarify their brand. That's, kind of my space. And my niche is startups. And my book, Ready Launch Brand, The Lean Marketing Guide for Startups, was published by Routledge in May 2021 and was the #1 new business book on Amazon in April of that year.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. That's fantastic. We'll be sure to put a link to your book and such in the show notes. Let's dig a little bit more deeply into your business. What kind of expertise, what kind of services do you provide, and who do you serve?
So I like to say that I only have really one superpower, which is that I make fuzzy clear. And what that means is I turn disjointed ideas and maybe an unclear vision and, kind of look at all of those things, and I turn all that into clear marketing messages that help startups and solopreneurs attract their ideal clients, so those clients can find them, buy them, and refer them.
And with that, a little follow-up question. Are you talking just visual messaging, or are you talking more copy messaging? Like, what does it mean?
Yeah, so, well, it's interesting because, I don't go into this very often, but my background is, I had a design and marketing communications firm for 14 years. And our specialty was brand identity and logos. That was really, we were published in, books, best logos in the world, and graphics and all kinds of, so I have this whole background and I use that training now. And I'm also, by the way, a graduate from one of the top design programs in the country. But what I do now is I use that, use all of that training and that background. So when I look at somebody's website, so I look at, basically I focus on your website, your elevator pitch, your key messages, and also social media, specifically LinkedIn. So I work with B2B companies and founders. And what I do is I can go in and I can immediately look at your profile and I can see where the disconnects might be. Because what I do is I really help you connect who you are with who needs it, and then help you communicate your zone of genius to the people who not only want it, but will value it and will pay a premium for it.
Bingo. It's the foundation of every business, right?
It is the foundation of every
business.
You
got to start there.
Yeah.
Well, what got you into this business? You're very educated, very experienced. But what was your why to do this? What get you out of the house, so to speak? You might have a home office, but
well, I do now. I'm in a home office, always used to be, but yeah. So, it's interesting. I actually come from a long line of entrepreneurs on my father's side. So I grew up, with that just being kind of what you did. You started your own business. And as I mentioned, before I started my consulting practice, I had 20 years of experience in design and marketing communications. But in 2000, I wrote myself a mission statement, basically figured out what I was going to do next. And that's when I opened my consulting practice. And it's interesting because once I actually, those of you who know Simon Sinek, of course, and the Golden Circle, that was, for me, was an aha moment. And that's really when I decided that I was going to focus on startups. And then when I kind of went back and I realized, like, oh yeah, I come from this long line, like generations of entrepreneurs. No wonder I both am an entrepreneur and I love working with entrepreneurs. And the last thing I'm going to say about that is there's also a very personal piece to the work I do, because growing up with a father who had his own business, there are a lot of lean years. And so when I help a founder be more successful, there's a part of me that feels like, well, I'm also helping their family. And so, I think of another little girl somewhere in the world, right, who maybe is happier because their parent is doing well. So it's personal as well as a business for me.
I love that. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. So let's get into a little bit of brass tacks here. Why is branding, I'll say, critical for a startup or a small business to consider? We sort of alluded to it in the beginning because it's a foundational piece, but I'd love to hear more about why it's so important and beneficial to be front and center.
Right. No, that's a great question, Dennise. And honestly, for me, the whole premise behind this, first of all, I think we're going to get to this, but there's a lot of misunderstanding about what branding is, right? So I don't know if you want me to cover it. That's kind of all part of that question, but I'm happy.
Do it. We could do a double question. I'm feeling crazy.
There we go. We're doing this on the fly, Dennise. We're like, we're gonna nail all this. Yeah, we'll cover it. So first of all, for me, I think of branding more in terms of, getting clear on who you are, your messaging. And, most people think of branding as the visual piece. Mm-hmm. And the reality is it's much more than that. So it's the whole, I like to talk about brand touch points, which is, every opportunity you have to interact with someone's brand, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram or, or whether it's their website or it's the types of posts that they do, whatever it is. This is before you ever meet the person, right? You've already experienced a lot of aspects of the business. So if you are disjointed, if you are confusing and confused, and you've got all different kinds of messages out there, and your website, this is the other big thing, your website and your LinkedIn profile don't look like they're part of the same family, that's a lost opportunity to get people to, first of all, get a better understanding of who you are and remember you. See, a big part of all of this is remembering me. And we remember things that are different. We remember things that stand out. We don't remember things that are generic, that use generic language, that have, images that just look like they just pulled it out of a stock photo or stock site that has nothing to do with really anything you do. And by the way, I see this a lot on LinkedIn where people will have their banner image and it's like a lake or mountains. It's like, are you a mountain climber? Are you selling clothes, right? So there's this idea of we don't connect who we are with how we communicate it. Mm-hmm. And because we forget that we are not speaking to ourselves, we're speaking to people who don't know us, who have never potentially heard of us, but who could use our services, who actually would benefit from what we do, but they can't understand what we do because we're not providing them with a clear, concise, and also repetitive. Like it's like we consistently do this in the same way and do a lot of it. So it's not just clarity and consistency, but you want to make sure that you repeat it so that I'm constantly hearing the same message. And people worry about the fact that, oh my God, I'm saying this too many times. It takes more than 7 times for somebody even to remember that they heard it. This is not remembering what you said. This is just remembering that they heard it. Yeah. So the idea that somehow, people are going to get tired of what you're saying, no one's paying that much attention, right? So
totally true. And there's so much out there.
So much noise, which is why I talk about what I do is cutting through the noise, right? That's the whole. And by the way, I've been saying that since 2000.
Yeah. And it's only gotten noisier. So
it's only gotten noisier.
Yeah, exactly. How do startups or business owners use their brand to build relationships? So for me, I'm an online marketing strategist and a content creator. We have a lot of similar things, but different. But my whole thing is about the relationship, not the transactional, right? And I think you and I have talked about that.
Very much so, yeah.
So I believe that people can legitimately complain about social media, for example, right? Totally get that. But you can also use it because it's not going away I think everyone has some place in the digital sphere, you know what I mean, for their business, but you can use it for good is what I'm getting at, right? So you can develop relationships with people so they can get to know you. So I would love to hear your thoughts about how branding can do that.
So I think I need to let me go back to some of the basics of branding, right? So everyone thinks it's a logo, right? That's the first thing people think about, because a logo is shorthand for your brand. So of course, if you've seen the logo, but we're talking about logos of brands we actually know, like everyone's seen the Nike swoosh, right? Which by the way, is actually not a swoosh. It's a segment of the wing of the goddess of victory, Nike.
Okay.
Just FYI, all right, a little information.
A little trivia.
A little trivia. Yeah, I love trivia, especially when it comes to
bonus content.
So here's the thing, people think, oh, well, I just need to have a logo. I put it out there and people, will come, right? But the problem is that most people haven't taken the time to really figure out what is behind this logo. Like, what is it that I have built? So when I talk about brand clarity, what I'm really saying is, who are you as a brand that I can recognize? And then the imaging, right? So whatever images you use will reinforce that. So, right. So the interesting thing for me, as I was saying earlier, that LinkedIn and websites often don't even look like they're part of the same family. And my suggestion is always use whatever, this is why you want to do the work to get to what is the right image, what is the right tagline, what is your elevator pitch, what is the couple things you can say that immediately put someone in the right space to kind of think about your brand. Once you do that, then you need to have it in every place where you are showing up. So since I'm focusing mostly on LinkedIn, although I have Twitter as well, but less so now, of course, for obvious reasons, but the banner image is always the same. The tagline is the same. The colors. So that's another thing we can spend a lot of time talking about colors, because most people don't think about colors as a representative of your brand. So just to give you another just very quick trivia, there is orange is the color of innovation and purple is the color of leadership. And so I use those colors, right?
Let me ask you a question. What does turquoise mean? Do you know?
So that kind of blue-green kind of color.
Yeah.
I know that blue is a very calming color, and I think when you get to more pastel colors, they tend to be more relationship focused.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Those are my colors, turquoise and orange. Anyway, enough about me. Back to you. So building the relationship. Okay. All right, great. So, what I heard is that they're all sort of like pieces of a puzzle. But the thing is, they all have the same edges, right? In a sense, because they're all saying the same thing, just reinforcing it concretely. You know what I mean? Whether they're looking at your website, whether they're reading your e-newsletter, or whether they're engaging in your social media posts on LinkedIn, whatever the case may be. Do you see any interesting trends? I don't know, using AI, or do we not even talk about
away
that?
From that one. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No.
Yeah. Here's the thing with AI. So that's definitely the trend. I mean, it's already here. It's been here for a while. And for me, it represents very much the way that, because I remember when the web came out, right? When all of a sudden everything moved online. And what was interesting is it took several years for people to realize that a homepage, a website, is not the same as a brochure. And that took a while, right? So people still weren't using it as an interactive tool. I think with AI, and that is definitely the trend, people are going to start using it more. They're going to depend on it more to come up with business names and to create taglines. The problem with this, and I'm going to say this is true of all technology, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you haven't done the work to figure out, like, yeah, you can absolutely have AI help you. And I have used it actually. But what I find is it doesn't know my voice, and it doesn't really understand my business unless I explain it to it first.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing. I can't believe I just said that. I'm explaining my business to a bot, right? But here's the thing. If you are going to use it, so my words of caution here, Please don't expect it to do the work for you. It can only give you, can only react to what you give them. So yeah, it can give you 300 words, alternatives for I am happy, or whatever, but it doesn't explain, doesn't know what your core value is. And which is why that's such a big part of my process, is to understand, what is at the core of your brand. Because if you don't know that, we jump right into selling before we understand what we're selling. And I think that's going to be the same problem with AI.
And that's a perfect segue, because Alana asks a question.
Oh, wonderful.
What do you see as the place for branding in the sales process without sounding like, you're doing a sales pitch or too, elevator speechy or whatever? You know what I mean?
I do. And that's a great question, Alana. Thank you for that. So here's what I've discovered. First of all, we are all in relationships, right? We have moved away from transactional selling. The moment we went from brick and mortar to digital, we had to start rethinking how we sell, because what people want is they want to first get to know you. So the key here is you need to give me consistent and bite-sized information that adds up to, to use your analogy of a puzzle, there's a picture. And for me, and I think puzzle is such a great analogy, because the picture is your brand, right? That's all of you. And then all these pieces, when you put them together, they help me understand who you are as a brand. So what I would say is, really understanding who you are so that you're able to bring somebody along and to get to the sale, you have to first, you want to lead with your solution, not to your solution, right? So, turn that around. Sorry. You want to lead people to your solution, not with your solution. So you don't start out by selling, right? And I see this a lot, by the way, on homepages. Like I'm landing on a homepage, and I will tell you, there are only two things I want to know when I land on a homepage. Who are you, and why should I care? That's it. Like, I want to understand who you are, and I want to understand, does it impact me? Is it something that I'm going to care about? Mm-hmm. And the problem is that most people, like, you can land on there, they're already trying to sign you up for something. They're asking you to connect with them. They're sending you, links to their newsletter and articles, or they're saying, schedule time with me. It's like, I don't know anything about you, right? I mean, unless, of course, it's somebody who knows you. But these days, most people are going to go to LinkedIn first anyway.
Yeah, totally. Now, do you see any trends coming up in branding, like looking in your magic ball or something like that? I mean, you got your fingers on the pulse of branding, Orly. So do you see anything coming up or anything that's like, oh, this is going to be an interesting trend when it comes to brand messaging?
Yeah, I think when it comes to brand messaging, what I'm seeing is more storytelling. And that, for me, like, that's something that I'm very keen about, because, as humans, this is how we connect to everyone, is through stories. So brand storytelling, and by the way, I believe it's either 8 or 9 out of 10 top brands use storytelling to sell their product. And, I always like to use Patagonia because they're such a great company, but, they don't sell you. They show you, they demonstrate, but in everything they do, they're the people wearing their clothes, but they don't say buy the shirt. They show people climbing the side of some incredible mountain, and they're wearing Patagonia, right? So, I mean, that's just an example. And of course, that's a product, that's a B2C, that's not a B2B. But on the service end, what I would say is testimonials are a big part of this, right? People are much more interested in hearing what other people say about you than what you say about yourself.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is deep. I mean, I literally just, at this point, it's like, if you want to know what it's like to work with me, just read my recommendations.
Yeah.
So one of the things when I work with people, one of the things I always look at is how many recommendations do you have? And are they helping to tell the story? Remember, you have a whole story, but you cannot tell the entire story in one breath. So, right. So social media is a great way to kind of bite size it. Instagram, even though I don't really use it for my business, I've actually taught Instagram. And one of the things is, they have this incredible tool, which is Instagram stories. And you could take a bite-sized piece of your business and develop a story around that. Videos, telling, again, like 30-second blips of information, articles. These are all ways to help establish your credibility, because we work with people we trust.
There you go, right on. And Marcy says, yes, video. She's our videographer or video producer. Sorry, Marcy, video producer in our group. Well, Orly, this has been so fantastic. We'll put your contact information in the show notes. So thank you so much for being here today.
Very welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure.